The stars of the Zathari Empire shone like shards of glass above the city of Varantel, their capital world. The tall towers were built from silver crystals that bent the light into rainbow hues. From far away, the world looked peaceful. But deep inside the palace, peace was only a word. Princess Elira Vin, daughter of Emperor Vin, stood near the large balcony of her chamber, looking at the stars. Her golden eyes reflected the endless sky, but her heart was heavy. Her people were losing a war they had fought for decades. The Dominion, a ruthless coalition of warlike species, had crushed planet after planet. The Zathari fleets were too weak now. Even their psychic powers could not protect them from the enemy's endless armies. She had always believed her people were strong, graceful, and wise. But now she saw fear in every council meeting. Every day new reports arrived: destroyed colonies, missing fleets, refugees. Then came the message that changed everything. Her father had made a deal, not with any alien power, but with humans. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy only 70 years ago. They were still new, but they had already become legends. Other races whispered stories about them, how humans fought wars without mercy, how they destroyed fleets 10 times their size, how they never surrendered. Some said humans had no empathy, that they were made for violence. To Elira, they sounded like monsters wearing skin. Her father's voice still echoed in her memory from that morning's council. To save our people, we must unite with those who cannot be defeated. Humanity has offered us protection, and an alliance through marriage. At first she thought she had misheard, but then he said her name. The marriage would be between Princess Elira of Zethar and General Marcus Hale of humanity. Marcus Hale, the ruthless human. Every alien child had heard his name. His fleet, called the Iron Resolve, had crushed 3 pirate nations and a Dominion vanguard in a single campaign. It was said he burned enemy ships to ash without hesitation. Some claimed he smiled as planets surrendered to him. He was the human warlord other species used to scare their children. And now, she was to be his wife. Elira's hands trembled as she sat alone in her chamber, the golden silk of her dress glowing softly in the crystal light. Her attendant, Liz, entered quietly. "Your Highness," Liz said softly. "The Emperor awaits you in the council hall." Elira nodded but didn't move. "Do you think humans are truly as cruel as they say?" she asked, almost whispering. Liz hesitated. "I do not know. They are strange. They build machines faster than anyone. They fight harder than any species I've seen. But cruelty, perhaps that depends on what they are fighting for." Elira sighed. "And now I must marry one." Liz tried to comfort her. But Elira could not stop thinking of what she had heard about Marcus Hale, the man who turned battlefields into graves. The council hall was a vast chamber of glowing pillars and floating symbols, filled with advisors and nobles. Her father, Emperor Vin, stood at the center in his ceremonial robes. His once strong face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with determination. When Elira entered, everyone turned. The Emperor dismissed the council and gestured for her to come closer. "My daughter," he said gently, "I know what you are feeling, but this is the only way. Humanity has agreed to defend our borders. In return, they ask for alliance, and not tribute, not slaves, not worlds. Only trust, through me," she said quietly. "Through a marriage to one they call Ruthless." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I have spoken to the Terran Council. General Hale is not the monster stories describe. He is a soldier who hates war more than most. You will see." Elira looked away. "And if you are wrong?" He paused for a long moment before answering. "Then I have doomed us all." 3 days later, the royal cruiser Serenity's Grace departed for the neutral space station Trinity's Dawn, where the meeting would take place. As the stars stretched into streaks of light, Elira sat in silence inside her cabin. Around her, Zathari guards stood still, their crystalline armor glowing faintly. She held a small hollow crystal, an image of her mother who had died years ago in the First Dominion War. Her mother's words came back to her. "Bravery is not the absence of fear, my little light. It is walking forward even when fear holds your hand." When the ship dropped out of hyperspace, the station came into view, massive, metallic, and clearly human-built. It looked nothing like Zathari architecture. No curves, no beauty, only function and power. Human ships surrounded it like wolves guarding their den. As the cruiser approached the docking bay, Elira's heart raced. This was it, the moment she would meet the man who ruled the battlefield. The ruthless human. The airlock hissed open. The scent of steel and oil filled the air. Sharp, mechanical, cold. Human soldiers lined the corridor, wearing dark armor with glowing blue visors. Their movements were precise, efficient. No wasted motion. Then, at the end of the corridor, she saw him. General Marcus Hale. He was taller than she expected, his uniform simple but immaculate. A long scar crossed his left cheek like a lightning strike. His eyes, gray, almost silver, were steady and unreadable. His expression showed no pride, no emotion, just calm. When he stepped forward, everyone around fell silent. Elira felt her body tense, her instincts screaming at her to be careful. She bowed formally as her people's custom demanded. Marcus responded, not with a nod or wave, but with a deep, respectful military bow. It was not what she expected from a ruthless man. "Princess Elira," he said, his voice low and firm, each word sharp as steel. "It is an honor to meet you at last." His accent was strange but clear. There was no arrogance, only discipline. Elira tried to speak, but her voice faltered. "General Hale," she said softly, "I thank you for welcoming us." He nodded slightly, and his eyes met hers for a brief moment. For an instant, she thought she felt something. Warmth, faint but real. And then it was gone. Marcus turned slightly toward her father's envoys and spoke with precise authority, arranging the ceremonial schedule. Every move he made showed control, patience, and power, but not cruelty. Still, Elira's thoughts would not quiet. Is this really the man who destroyed fleets? She wondered. Or is he simply pretending for now? Later, in the guest chambers, Elira found herself unable to sleep. The view outside the window showed a vast ocean of stars. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was preparing for its next strike. Somewhere out there, countless lives depended on this fragile alliance. And tomorrow, she would have to stand beside Marcus Hale in front of both empires, as his future wife. She pressed her hand against the glass. "What kind of world have I been born into?" she whispered, "where peace must be bought with fear." Behind her, Liz entered quietly. "He is not what I expected," she said softly. "The humans are efficient, respectful. None looked at us with hatred." Elira nodded slowly. "Maybe, but respect can hide many things." She turned back to the stars. "Tomorrow I will see his true face." Far away on the human command deck, Marcus stood alone, looking at the same stars. His officers had long left the room. In his hand he held a small data crystal, containing reports of destroyed Zathari colonies, images of burned cities. He had seen war too many times. He hated it, but he understood it better than anyone. And now this marriage and this fragile peace might be the only way to end it. He whispered quietly to himself. "Let them call me ruthless, if that's what it takes to stop another war." Then, without another word, he turned off the lights and stared into the endless dark, the same dark the princess was looking into, not knowing how soon their two worlds would collide. The next morning, Princess Elira woke up to the soft chime of her communicator. Her attendant Liz entered and bowed. "Your Highness, the human delegation awaits in the central hall. The formal meeting will begin in 1 hour." Elira stood silently by the mirror, watching her reflection. Her ceremonial robes shimmered in pale gold. Her face was calm, but inside her heart raced. Today she would meet General Marcus Hale again, not as a stranger, but as the man who was to become her husband. Outside the window, the enormous human space station Trinity's Dawn rotated slowly against a sea of stars. Human ships hovered around it like guardians, all sharp angles, armor, and power. The sight made her uneasy. It was beautiful in its own way, but also intimidating. There was no art, no grace, only strength. She turned away and whispered to herself, "What kind of people build beauty out of fear?" When Elira entered the central hall, hundreds of human officers and alien envoys filled the room. The banners of both empires hung side by side, one showing the crystal crest of Zethar, the other the iron sigil of humanity. At the center stood General Marcus Hale. He was speaking to her father's ambassadors in a calm tone, giving orders to his staff in between. His posture was firm, his eyes alert, and his uniform without a wrinkle. Even when surrounded by soldiers and nobles, he looked like a man who carried the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. When Illyra approached, the crowd parted. Marcus turned toward her. For a heartbeat, their eyes met, gold meeting silver. "Princess Illyra," Marcus said, his voice deep but not harsh. "Welcome. I hope your stay has been comfortable." "It has," she replied softly. "Your people are efficient." He gave a faint smile, barely noticeable. "Efficiency keeps us alive." There was a silence between them, not awkward but heavy. Illyra wanted to say more, to test the man behind the title. But her father's advisors began the formal proceedings and duty took over. For hours they discussed the terms of the alliance: trade, security, cultural exchange, and military defense. Illyra listened carefully, trying to understand this human leader. Marcus spoke with precision. He never raised his voice. Every word was measured. He treated her father's representatives as equal, something rare among alien leaders. But there was something else. When one of his officers made a small mistake during the report, Marcus didn't shout or punish him. Instead, he said quietly, "Next time, double-check the figures. Mistakes cost lives." Illyra noticed how his tone carried authority, not cruelty. His soldiers obeyed him out of respect, not fear. Still, she couldn't shake the image in her mind. The countless stories of Marcus Hale, the ruthless commander who had burned entire fleets. When the meeting ended, she walked beside him down the hall. The air between them was tense but curious. "General Hale," she said carefully, "I have heard much about you, most of it unpleasant." "I imagine," he replied, glancing at her with calm eyes. "Yes," she admitted. "They say you are ruthless, that you show no mercy." Marcus stopped walking. For a moment, silence filled the corridor. The guards pretended not to listen. Finally, he said, "Ruthless, perhaps. Mercy depends on the situation." He turned slightly toward her. "When pirates raided a colony and burned civilians alive, I destroyed their entire fleet. Some called that cruel. But tell me, Princess, what would you have done if it were your people?" Illyra's lips parted, but no words came out. She wanted to say she would have spared them, but deep inside she knew she would have done the same. Marcus continued walking, his voice quieter now. "Sometimes mercy only feeds the monsters. Sometimes to protect peace, you must be willing to be feared." Later that evening, Illyra was invited to tour the human flagship, HSS Iron Resolve, Marcus's personal command ship. As she stepped inside, she was greeted by the smell of metal, oil, and recycled air. The corridors were plain and practical. Human soldiers saluted her as she passed, their armor shining under bright lights. "Your ship feels different," she said, walking beside Marcus. "How so?" he asked. "There is no decoration. No art, no color, only metal." Marcus gave a small nod. "Because we don't build ships to be beautiful. We build them to survive. Out there," he pointed toward the starfield, "beauty doesn't matter. Endurance does." They stopped at the main bridge. Large screens showed tactical maps, fleet positions, and the image of distant stars. Officers worked quietly at their stations, speaking in short, precise sentences. Marcus gestured toward a window overlooking the stars. "That's where I spend most of my time, watching, planning, hoping my next order doesn't get people killed." Illyra turned to look at him, surprised. "Hoping?" "Yes," he said softly. "War isn't glory, Princess. It's mathematics with blood. Every victory is written in names we'll never read again." She didn't know how to respond. This wasn't the monster she had expected. There was sorrow in his voice, and guilt. Deep guilt. While they spoke, a sudden alarm echoed through the ship. Red lights flashed across the bridge. Marcus turned sharply toward his officers. "Report! Unknown vessel approaching from the outer rim of the sector, sir," one officer said. "No identification signal. Raise shields," Marcus ordered calmly. "Princess, please step back." The ship trembled slightly as energy fields activated. Illyra's guards formed a protective circle around her, but she stayed close to Marcus. Moments later, the enemy ship appeared on the screen, a small but heavily armed craft. It carried the markings of the Zathari purists, a rebel faction opposed to the alliance. "They're hailing us," the officer said. "Open channel," Marcus commanded. The hollow screen flickered to life, showing a Zathari captain sneering with hatred. "Human monster. You think you can corrupt our princess and enslave our people? We will end this disgrace now." Before anyone could reply, the rebel ship fired. Illyra gasped as blue plasma bolts struck the human shields. The deck shook violently, Return fire, Marcus said, his voice calm as stone. Non-lethal rounds only. Disable their engines, the officers obeyed instantly. Within seconds, precise human artillery tore through the rebel craft's thrusters, leaving it dead in space. Boarding team, secure the crew, Marcus ordered. Elira turned to him, shocked. You are not destroying them. He looked at her quietly. They are misled, not evil. They'll face justice, not fire. Her mind spun. This man, the one everyone called Ruthless, had just spared those who tried to kill him. After the crisis ended, Marcus walked Elira to the observation deck. The stars shone like cold diamonds outside the glass. You could have destroyed them, she said. No one would have questioned you. He looked out at the stars. Maybe. But every time we choose destruction when it isn't needed, we lose a piece of our humanity. Even if they would have killed you? He smiled faintly. Then I'd die a human, not a monster. For a moment, neither spoke. Elira studied his face, the scar, the hard jaw, the eyes that had seen too much. And yet, behind that strength, she saw something she had not expected. Pain. He wasn't ruthless. He was tired. As the night passed, Elira couldn't sleep. The image of Marcus standing under the starlight wouldn't leave her mind. Every story she had heard about him now seemed wrong. Maybe humans weren't monsters after all. Maybe they were just survivors. Like her people, they fought for the right to exist. She whispered softly to herself. Perhaps I was the one blinded by fear. Far across the ship, Marcus stood alone on the command bridge again, reviewing battle logs. One of his officers approached quietly. Sir, the princess seems different around you, the officer said. Marcus didn't look up. She sees what she wants to see. I'm not a hero. No, sir, the officer replied. But you might be what she needs. Marcus gave a faint, tired smile and looked at the stars. Maybe, he said. Or maybe I'm just the monster history needs right now. That night, two souls, one of crystal and one of steel, looked at the same stars from opposite ends of the ship. Both were thinking the same unspoken thought. Perhaps the galaxy had been wrong. Perhaps the ruthless human was not the beast of war, but the only one brave enough to want peace. Days passed aboard the human flagship HSS Iron Resolve, and for the first time in her life, Princess Elira felt trapped not by walls, but by uncertainty. She had expected cruelty from humans, harsh words, arrogance, and cold hearts. Instead, she found discipline, respect, and silence. The soldiers she passed in the halls stood tall but always saluted her politely. They never stared, never mocked, never showed fear. Every step they took echoed with purpose. Elira had lived her entire life surrounded by art, beauty, and psychic energy. The human ship was different. Everything was metal and motion. Yet beneath its harsh design there was a strange sense of order. Humans didn't chase beauty. They built strength. Every evening, Marcus Hale would meet her in the observation chamber to discuss the upcoming ceremony and political details of their alliance. But every conversation slowly drifted away from politics and toward something deeper. One night, as they stood before the window of stars, Elira asked softly, "Do humans ever get tired of war?" Marcus didn't look at her. Every day. Then why keep fighting? Because the galaxy doesn't let us rest. Someone always wants to take what we build. He turned to face her then, his silver eyes calm but heavy with memory. We fight so our children might never have to. Elira lowered her gaze. Zathari fight because we fear extinction. You fight because you believe in a better future. Marcus gave a faint smile. Maybe that's what makes us dangerous. For a moment, silence filled the room, not cold, but comfortable. The space between them no longer felt like a wall. It felt like a bridge slowly forming. The next morning, the joint alliance ceremony was held inside the grand hall of the station Trinity's Dawn. Representatives from both empires attended, human admirals, Zathari nobles, ambassadors from neutral worlds, and even spies disguised as guests. The hall glowed with silver and blue banners. The air shimmered with tension and curiosity. When Elira entered beside Marcus, every eye turned toward them. She could feel the weight of 1,000 thoughts, admiration, suspicion, hatred, and hope. Marcus walked beside her, his stride steady, his expression unreadable. But Illyra noticed something small, a subtle motion of his hand, close to hers, as if ready to shield her if danger came. The ceremony began with speeches. Emperor Vin spoke first, then the Terran Council representative. They spoke of peace, unity, and shared destiny. But Illyra could feel the undercurrent of fear beneath their words. When Marcus's turn came, he stepped forward and spoke in a calm, deep voice. War has taught both our peoples what loss means. Today, we begin something harder than war, peace, and peace, like war, demands courage. The hall fell silent. Even the Zethari nobles who distrusted him couldn't look away. Illyra found herself watching him, the strength in his stance, the sincerity in his voice. For the first time she saw not a soldier, but a leader who carried hope like a weapon. After the ceremony, a formal dinner followed. The tables were lined with mixed foods, human dishes of roasted meats and grains, Zethari fruits that glowed faintly under the light. Illyra sat beside Marcus, feeling the tension slowly dissolve. She noticed how he avoided the strong human drink and instead sipped water. "You don't celebrate like your officers," she said. He smiled faintly. "Someone has to stay sober in case things go wrong." Before she could reply, the lights flickered. The room darkened, alarms blared. Instantly, Marcus stood. "Security report." A voice came through his comlink. "Unidentified hostiles detected inside the station, sir. Multiple breaches, possibly Dominion agents." Illyra froze. Her guards surrounded her, drawing plasma blades. Marcus drew his sidearm and stood in front of her. "Stay behind me." Gunfire echoed down the halls. Screams followed. The guests scattered as human marines rushed in, forming defensive lines. "Princess, this way," Marcus commanded, leading her through a side corridor. The sound of explosions shook the metal walls. Illyra struggled to keep up. "How did they get here?" "Inside help," Marcus said grimly. "Someone wants this alliance to fail." They turned a corner and found a squad of masked attackers waiting. Energy bolts flew. Illyra gasped as one shot struck the wall beside her, leaving a smoking hole. Marcus moved with terrifying precision. His pistol barked once, twice, 3 times, every shot hitting its mark. The attackers fell before they could reload. He glanced back at her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, wide-eyed. "You move like a machine." He holstered his weapon. "No, like a man who's seen too much war." They reached a sealed security room. Marcus ordered his soldiers to barricade the entrance. "Get her to safety," he said, but Illyra refused. "You saved me once. I will not hide while others die for me." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Stay behind me and do exactly as I say." Inside the room, the main screen displayed the station's layout. Several red dots blinked, enemy signatures. Marcus's officer reported through comms. "General, we've identified the attackers, not Dominion, Zethari extremists, calling themselves the Pure Hand. They claim the princess has betrayed her race." Illyra's heart sank. "My own people," she whispered. Marcus looked at her. "Not your people, just those too blind to see the truth." The extremists tried to break through the security doors. Metal groaned as explosives hit the outer wall. Marcus turned to his soldiers. "Hold this line, no one breaches this room." He crouched beside Illyra. "If they get through, I want you to run." She shook her head firmly. "No, I will not leave you." Before he could argue, the door exploded. The blast threw them both to the ground. Smoke filled the room. Through the haze, armored figures stormed in, weapons blazing. Marcus roared, pulling Illyra behind a console. He fired in short bursts, each shot precise. The humans fought like a single organism, coordinated, disciplined. But the enemy was many. A plasma bolt grazed Illyra's arm. She cried out in pain. Marcus immediately turned, grabbing her wrist. His touch was surprisingly gentle. "Stay with me," he said. He tore a strip from his sleeve and wrapped it tightly around her wound. "You'll be fine." Then he stood again, fury in his eyes. No one touches her. He charged forward, slamming into an attacker with his shoulder, disarming another with a twist of his wrist. In seconds, the room was quiet again. Smoke drifted around their feet. When it was over, Marcus stood breathing heavily, his uniform torn, blood on his knuckles. Elira looked at him, not in fear, but in awe. This was the man everyone called Ruthless. But she saw the truth now. He wasn't ruthless, and he was relentless. After the battle, human medics treated the wounded. Marcus stood by Elira's side until her arm was bandaged. "You saved me," she said quietly. He shook his head. "You saved yourself. You didn't freeze, you stayed strong." Elira smiled faintly through the pain. "Maybe humans are not the only ones who can fight." He smiled back. "I never doubted that." Hours later, the surviving attackers were captured and interrogated. The leader revealed that they had been supplied by Dominion agents, proof that the enemy was trying to destroy the new alliance before it began. Marcus reported this to the Terran Council and Emperor Vin. Both sides were furious, but united in anger. When the meeting ended, Elira found Marcus alone in the command chamber. He stood looking out at the stars again as if trying to find answers there. "You risked your life for me," she said softly. "Why?" He turned to her. "Because your death would have ended peace before it began, and because—" He paused. "Because I couldn't let you die." Her heart skipped a beat. "You speak as if I mean more than an alliance." He looked away, his voice low. "Maybe you do." That night, Elira stood on the observation deck again. The stars looked different now, closer somehow. She remembered the way Marcus had stood between her and death, the way he had bled for her. All her life, she had been told humans were cold, violent, and heartless. But now she knew the truth. Humans did not fight because they loved war. They fought because they loved peace so much they were willing to kill for it. Princess Elira stood by the wide observation window of the human flagship Iron Resolve. Beyond the glass stretched the endless stars, cold, bright, and alive. The ship moved like a beast of metal through the void, every hum and vibration a sign of its strength. It had been several weeks since the assassination attempt. She still remembered the way General Marcus Hale had shielded her, how his armor burned under plasma fire, how he didn't even flinch until she was safe. She had called him ruthless once. Now she was not so sure what that word meant anymore. The human routine. Every morning the human soldiers trained in the ship's large hangar. Elira sometimes watched from the upper level. Humans were different from her people, louder, rougher, yet strangely disciplined. They shouted encouragement at each other, pushed their limits, and laughed even when exhausted. She had been taught that humans thrived on chaos. But what she saw was unity through struggle. Marcus led them without arrogance. He trained beside them, sweating, fighting, falling, and rising again. When one soldier failed a task, he didn't scold them. He showed them how to do it better. Elira couldn't help but feel drawn to that. One morning she came down to the hangar. The soldiers stopped at once, standing in perfect formation. Marcus turned, surprised but calm. "Your Highness," he greeted. "Did you come to inspect us or join us?" Elira smiled faintly. "Perhaps both." He handed her a training blade. "Then let's see what the Princess of the Zathari Empire can do." The sparring match was brief. Elira was fast, elegant, her moves like art. Marcus was steady, patient. Every time she struck, he blocked with precise timing, waiting for her to overextend. Finally, he disarmed her gently, catching her wrist before she fell. "Not bad," he said with a small smile. "But your footing gives away your intention." Elira's face flushed slightly. "And you fight like a wall." "Good," he said. "Walls protect people." She looked at him, the scarred face, the calm eyes, and wondered how many lives this man had protected behind his so-called ruthlessness. The dinner with commanders. That evening, the ship hosted a formal dinner with human and Zathari officers. It was the first joint meeting between both sides since the alliance ceremony. Elira sat beside Marcus at the long table, surrounded by people who once called each other enemies. There was tension in the air, but also curiosity. One Zathari general, clearly uneasy, whispered to her, Do you truly trust them, Princess? These humans wage war like machines. Before Illyra could reply, Marcus raised his glass. To peace, he said simply. To every soldier who chose duty over hatred. The room fell silent. Then slowly, one by one, both humans and Zathari lifted their glasses. Illyra looked at Marcus again. He didn't give speeches of pride or power. He spoke like a man who had seen too much blood and wanted none of it again. Later that night, as they left the dining hall, she asked, "You speak like someone tired of war." He paused. "I am, but I'll keep fighting if it means my people, and now yours, can live without it. Even if it costs your life?" She asked softly. Marcus met her gaze. Especially then. Something shifted inside her, a feeling she hadn't expected. It wasn't fear. It wasn't duty. It was something warm, quiet, and human. Stories of Earth over. The next few days, Illyra spent more time with Marcus. He showed her old recordings from Earth. Cities glowing at night, oceans reflecting the sun, mountains older than civilization itself. Her favorite was a video of humans climbing a frozen peak. "Why do they do that?" she asked. "There is no treasure up there," Marcus smiled faintly. "Because it's there. Because it's hard. Humans climb, fight, build, and not always for gain, but to prove we can, to test ourselves against the impossible." She watched the climbers reach the summit, raising a small flag into the wind. For a moment, she imagined her own people doing that, and realized how rare such fire was among them. "Humans," she murmured. "You are." "Strange," Marcus chuckled. "We get that a lot." Then he turned serious. "But strange is what kept us alive. We survived our own wars, our own extinction-level events. We learned that peace doesn't come from fear, it comes from endurance." Illyra looked at him then, truly seeing him, not as a warrior, but as a living symbol of his species' survival. The growing connection days became weeks. What began as curiosity became comfort. Illyra found herself seeking Marcus's company. During meals, during strategy briefings, during quiet walks along the ship's corridors. He never treated her like a fragile royal. He challenged her, questioned her beliefs, and listened when she spoke. One day, as they stood by the viewport, she asked, "Why did you accept this marriage? Surely there were others more." "Political?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Because peace needs someone willing to carry its weight. I've seen too many treaties fail because no one believed in them. I wanted to make sure this one doesn't." He glanced at her. "And I wanted to meet the woman brave enough to stand with humanity despite everything she's heard about us." Her heart beat faster. "I was not brave," she whispered. "I was afraid." "Courage," he said, "isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move forward anyway." Their eyes met. For a long moment, no words were needed. The attack on the convoy piece never comes without challenge. While escorting supply convoys to a new joint colony, the Iron Resolve was ambushed by unknown ships. The attackers were fast, armed with hybrid technology. Human and Zathari designs mixed together. Traitors. Explosions rocked the hull. Crew members shouted orders. The ship's alarm screamed through every deck. Marcus rushed to the command bridge, Illyra following despite his protests. "Stay in the safe chamber," he ordered. "No," she said firmly. "This alliance is mine too." She stood beside him as he barked orders, coordinating counterattacks. Human pilots launched in fighters, forming defense grids while Zathari ships created psionic shields. The teamwork was rough, imperfect, unbelievable, but real. An enemy blast struck near the bridge, throwing sparks and smoke everywhere. Illyra stumbled, but Marcus grabbed her before she fell. "You're bleeding," she said, seeing the cut on his forehead. He wiped it away. "I'll bleed later. Right now, we fight." For hours, the battle raged. The attackers tried to split the fleet apart, but Marcus kept them united, refusing to retreat. Finally, when the enemy flagship appeared, Illyra felt a psychic tremor, the signature of Zathari minds. "Her own kind, Zathari extremists," she said bitterly. "They want to destroy the Alliance." Marcus clenched his fists. "Then they'll learn what happens when you threaten what we're building." He ordered the fleet into iron shield formation, an ancient human tactic that used overlapping defensive lines to trap the enemy. Together, human precision and Zathari psychic power overwhelmed the attackers. When the last hostile ship exploded, the bridge went quiet. The Alliance had survived. The aftermath, After the battle, Elira sat beside Marcus in the medical bay. He was bandaged but still giving orders to repair crews. "You should rest," she said softly. "I will when they do," he replied, nodding toward his crew. She smiled. "You lead with your heart, General." Marcus looked at her, weary but calm. "No, Princess. I lead with my people's hope. And now yours too." Elira felt tears sting her eyes. She had once feared this man. Now she couldn't imagine facing a single day without him. She reached out, hesitating, then took his hand. His calloused fingers tightened gently around hers. For the first time, she didn't feel like a pawn in a political game. She felt like a partner in something far greater. The rebirth of peace between two species who had once feared each other most. That night, as the stars drifted past the viewport, Elira whispered to herself, "Perhaps the universe was right to call him Ruthless." She looked at him sleeping in the med chair, his armor half removed, his chest rising steadily, but only ruthless against those who bring war. The stars outside Iron Resolve looked peaceful, but every soul aboard knew that calm never lasted long. Princess Elira stood beside General Marcus Hale on the bridge, her hands folded in front of her. The last battle had revealed a terrifying truth. Zethari extremists and Dominion warlords had joined forces. They wanted to destroy the Alliance before it could unite the galaxy. Marcus had spent days strengthening defenses and coordinating fleets from both sides. Sleep was rare. His uniform bore new scars and his eyes were heavy with worry. Yet when he looked at Elira, a faint smile always found its way to his lips. "Are you afraid?" he asked quietly. Elira turned her gaze to the stars. "Yes, but not like before." "How so?" "Before I feared humans," she said softly. "Now I only fear losing one." Marcus froze for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure you don't." The declaration of war hours later, an emergency transmission arrived from the outer colonies. The Dominion fleet, hundreds of ships, was advancing on both Zethari and human territories. It was not a raid this time. It was war. Admiral Knox, one of Marcus's oldest comrades, appeared on the holoscreen. "They're coming in waves, Marcus. I've never seen anything like this. If they break through, Earth and Zethar will both burn." Marcus straightened. "Then we don't let them." He turned to Elira. "We'll take the fight to them together." Elira nodded, her face calm but her heart racing. "Then this will be our first war as allies, and perhaps," she thought silently, "our last if we fail." The United Fleet days later. The United Coalition fleet assembled in orbit above the neutral world of Kaldros. For the first time in history, human battleships and Zethari cruisers stood side by side, two species that once feared and hated each other. Marcus's flagship, Iron Resolve, led the human line. Beside it flew the Zethari capital vessel Eclipse Crown, commanded by Elira's father, Emperor Vin himself. On the main screen, Marcus spoke with the Emperor. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, bowing slightly, "your daughter has been invaluable to this alliance." Vin looked at his daughter, then back at Marcus. His expression was stern, but there was something else. Quiet gratitude. "Protect her, General," the Emperor said, "and protect the dream we've built." "You have my word," Marcus replied. The fleets moved into formation. Over 600 ships aligned under one banner. It was a sight the galaxy had never seen. Humanity and the Zethari Empire fighting not against each other, but side by side. The first clash, when the Dominion arrived, space turned into fire. Massive enemy dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace, filling the void with crimson energy signatures. The battle began instantly. The dark between stars lit up with beams of plasma and psionic bursts. Human railguns tore through enemy armor while Zethari telepaths disrupted the Dominion's command networks. Elira stood on the bridge, channeling her psionic focus to strengthen allied shields. Sweat formed on her forehead, her eyes glowing faintly blue. Marcus stood beside her, giving orders with calm precision. "Shift line 4, good, hold that angle. Target their forward dreadnought. Don't let them split our formation." Every explosion rattled the ship. Crew shouted updates. Dozens of lives were lost every minute, but Marcus never wavered. Even when his own fleet began to suffer heavy losses, he refused to retreat. A junior officer cried, "General, we can't hold much longer." Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "We hold because we must. Humanity doesn't back down, not when others depend on us." His words burned through the fear like a torch in darkness. Even the Zathari officers around him straightened their backs. The turning point hours into the battle, the Dominion unleashed its superweapon, a planet-killer cannon mounted on its flagship. The weapon charged, gathering a swirling ball of destructive energy large enough to wipe out half the fleet. Aelira sensed it instantly. "Marcus, if that fires, millions will die." He glanced at the readings. "Their shield matrix is too strong for direct assault. We'll have to overload it from inside." He looked at her. "I'll take a strike team." "You stay here." "No." Her voice was firm, unwavering. "You'll need me. My psionics can disrupt their power core long enough for you to destroy it." He hesitated. "If you go, you might not make it back." She met his eyes, fearless. "Then at least I'll die doing what I believe in." Marcus gave a small, proud nod. "Then we go together." The infiltration. The strike team boarded a stealth shuttle and flew straight into the Dominion flagship's hangar, weaving through fire and debris. The shuttle shuddered as it landed. Marcus led the team out, plasma rifle in hand, armor scorched but steady. Aelira followed, using her psionic energy to cloak them from enemy sensors. Dominion soldiers, tall insectoid brutes, patrolled the corridors. Step by step, they advanced deeper into the ship until they reached the reactor chamber, a massive glowing sphere pulsing with unstable power. "This is it," Aelira whispered. "I can sense the control link. Give me time." Marcus nodded, setting explosives along the walls. "You have 3 minutes." As she closed her eyes and focused, enemy alarms blared. The Dominion had found them. Dozens of soldiers poured in, firing energy bolts. Marcus shouted, "Defensive circle!" He fought like a storm. Every shot precise, every move efficient. His armor sparked, his weapon overheated, but he didn't stop. His soldiers fell one by one until only he and Aelira remained. She screamed, her psionic power surging, forming a barrier that deflected the final wave of fire. The reactor flickered wildly. "Now!" she cried. Marcus triggered the detonator. "Goodbye, you bastards." The explosion ripped through the ship. The escape. The blast wave tore the Dominion flagship apart. Marcus and Aelira were thrown back, barely escaping through an emergency airlock. Their shuttle, half destroyed, drifted into the void, its engines dead. They floated in silence, the battle still raging in the distance. Through the cracked viewport, they saw the Dominion fleet collapsing without its leader. The humans and Zathari had won. Marcus's arm was bleeding, his breathing heavy. Aelira pressed her hand against his wound, her psionics glowing faintly to seal it. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "No, we did it." Their comms crackled. "Iron resolved to shuttle team. We're tracking your signal." "Hold on." Relief washed over them. Aelira looked at him, eyes glistening. "When I first met you," she said softly, "I thought you were a monster." He chuckled faintly. "You weren't the first. But now," she continued, her voice trembling, "I know you're something else entirely. You're the man who taught 2 galaxies what strength truly means." He reached out, brushing her hand gently. "And you're the woman who taught me what peace feels like." The new dawn a week later, the war was over. The Dominion fleet was destroyed. The extremists scattered. Human and Zathari engineers worked together, rebuilding the colonies they once fought over. On the steps of the Unity Hall, leaders from both species gathered to sign the Treaty of Kaldros, the official document ending centuries of fear. Princess Aelira stood beside Marcus in ceremonial armor. Their hands joined before the entire galaxy. When the Emperor approached them, his eyes softened. "You have done what neither empire could achieve alone," he said. "My daughter, my son-in-law, the stars will remember your names." Marcus bowed. "Peace isn't built by one man, Your Majesty. It's built by everyone willing to protect it." The crowd erupted in cheers. For the first time, humans and aliens celebrated as one. The moment beneath the stars later that night. After the celebrations ended, Aelira and Marcus stood on a quiet balcony overlooking the restored capital. The sky shimmered with hundreds of ships flying in peaceful formation. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. Marcus looked at her, his expression calm and certain. "As long as people like us keep fighting for it, yes." Aelira smiled, stepping closer. "You were called the Ruthless Human," she whispered. "Now I know why." "Oh?" he asked softly. "Because you're ruthless toward hate, ruthless toward war, and ruthless toward anything that threatens what you love." Marcus smiled. A rare, genuine one. Then I'll stay ruthless for the rest of my life." He took her hands gently. "And I'll spend that life proving to you that peace was worth every battle." She rested her head against his shoulder, feeling his heartbeat, strong, steady, human. Outside, the stars shimmered brighter than ever before.